Okay, so I was kind of thinking about making a video, and something that came to mind that I could talk about and that I have some experience with is cold exposure. So just really throwing my body into really cold environments and like uncomfortable feelings that have to do with cold temperatures. So just some little bit of context. This may be related, may not be. I think kind of is. But I grew up at least like for 4 years of my young child life from 3 till 7. I grew up in pretty much like Arctic conditions. So my parents are teachers, and they both found a job in northern Quebec, and it was in the Arctic village, Inuit village. Lived up there for 4 years, and it was an area that was above the tree line. It was tundra, and yeah, it was really cold. Like maybe you'd have like 2 months of summer the entire year, and then the rest would just be like cold winter conditions. And that's just, I think that has some relevancy with me growing up in cold conditions, and that like it's something that I was a bit more comfortable with temperatures being colder than like it being hot. And I would travel south, and I remember like going in summers and it was like 30 degrees, and I actually felt like I was dying. I felt like I was dying in the heat. Like I could not be in direct sunlight when it was 30 degrees, and yeah, it just smoked me really pretty much. Like it was uncomfortable as hell. But yeah. So then eventually after 7 years old, we moved away from that place into an area that's more warm and not -20 year round. So yeah, yeah, and I got used to the heat. Like heat is pretty nice. I fuck with heat now. Like compared to before, it is nicer now. But yeah, I think about four. It was probably about 4 years ago, um, where I started taking cold showers in the mornings. So it was more of a tactic because I was getting up early, and I was getting up early with like little sleep. So I was like, man, I feel like shit right now. I'm gonna be sleepy all day. And I found that me taking a cold shower really helped with that. I'd get up and I was feeling energized. I wasn't drinking coffee at that time. It was just straight up just cold showers, just waking me up and make me feel like I um, am not actually running on like 4 or 5 hours of sleep. So I'd get up and just jump in a cold shower, and like thinking back, like I don't even know how I did that because I wouldn't want to do that now. Like wake up right away, little sleep, and then jump straight into a cold shower. But I was doing that. I was doing that, and I was like younger for sure. So, and it was also in part too that I was trying to like fix. I was trying to fix my image up, as in like you shower and then you fix your hair up and shit before you go to school, like stuff like that. But ever since then, I kind of just started doing cold showers, and I'd say the past 4 years, I'd say 70% of my showers have been cold, and yeah, yeah, and it's gotten to the point now where it is just comfortable, where when cold water is hitting me, it's not like there's no fight or flight response that I used to have, where it's like, oh my god, it's terrible, and then like stop it after 15 seconds. It's now just, yeah, just my system, my body's used to that stimuli of just like cold shit. So now it's like, yeah, I'll have prolonged showers, like 5-10 minutes of cold, and yeah, it's okay. Like I don't mind it. And I remember a couple years back, maybe like 2 years or 3 years ago, I watched or I listened to a Dr. Huberman lab. So shout out Andrew Huberman, but he's he's a scientist, podcast scientist at Stanford. Um, I think he is a neuroscientist, not just a podcast guy, but he talked about um, the effects of cold showers in the brain and what how it can benefit you. And I've kind of forgotten about some of it, but so I searched it up. So I'm gonna talk about those main key things that are like, oh shit, like that's kind of nice. So yeah, I guess we'll get into it. So it's like the first thing I want to focus on is that I mentioned it earlier when you are in the cold shower and the cold water is hitting you, this initial fight or flight response just starts up because it's not comfortable. It's not comfortable at all. Like just jumping into a situation where your body isn't really like ready for it or like adapted to it. So that fight or flight response it activates, and that increases the adrenaline like pumping through you. And you know, like adrenaline's cool. It gets the heart beating, but it lasts up to I don't know. I think this website said maybe like 15, 30 minutes, or maybe it is longer. Maybe it is like throughout the whole day. I'm not so sure. But after that shower, because of this adrenaline, your focus and concentration is heightened because you were previously in that fight or flight response. Your body's on high alert, so you kind of utilize that, especially in mornings. That's why you feel awake. So utilize that to go to school and just do what you have to do. So I think that's pretty cool. Um, Another thing that Dr. Huberman talked about was this thing, top-down control. So you throw yourself into a cold shower, and the first thing that your brain tells you is like, get the fuck out of this. Why are you doing this? Like this sucks. What is this? Why are you doing this? It could be warm. It could be like so comfortable right now. And yeah, your first instinct is just to turn it off and go. But this thing of top down control is the act of like suppressing um, the impulsivity of doing something. So the act of like fighting against that feeling of just like, oh, I don't want to be doing this. Like, why am I doing this? Is what Huberman like mentioned as that top down control. And he said it's something to do with the prefrontal cortex and how it's like that's the area that is a lot of the time associated with like impulsivity or yeah, something like that. Yeah. So you're essentially like training the brain, and what he said is uh, training grit. You're training grit to really like stand through some like uncomfortable feeling. So that quote unquote grit. And hmm, I guess also the last one that is kind of the one that I knew the most about is that it affects your dopamine and also your testosterone. So I know a little bit less about that. I don't know much about how it affects your testosterone, but I know that it might increase it or at least impact it in some positive way. But I don't have that information. But I do know with dopamine that it may increase your dopamine sensitivity. It says something about how the adrenaline that gets released also activates your dopamine receptors. So this may make them more sensitive, or maybe your baseline dopamine levels are lowered. Um, I don't know for sure, but I do know that testosterone and dopamine are affected in beneficial ways. So maybe that's if you guys want to check that out, that could be worth looking into. But yeah, as for like how all this has affected me, um, like I don't really know. I'm not really sure. I don't know if I would feel my day to day feeling would be any different right now if I never started taking cold showers because I wasn't really aware of these positive effects. I wasn't aware of cold showers actually affecting your immune system and other stuff. Which reminds me also another thing that cold showers does also do is that it increases your white blood cell count. So that is also great. It literally strengthens your immune system because it's like your body's creating more white blood cells to fight off this um, this danger of cold, of like almost like a potential sickness. Um, so I would like to say that my immune system has gotten a lot stronger because I rarely get sick. I might get sick once a year, and yeah, like literally once a year, maybe for like 2 days. So I'd say that's pretty good compared to like some people who might get sick like maybe like 5 times in a month, which is just like that would just feel really shitty. But but yeah, so if you I definitely would recommend it just based off of this stuff. Um Again, I'm not sure. It's hard for me to really tell the differences of how it's affected me because I just wasn't really aware. I was just doing it for the first couple of years just because I found that it helped me like wake up. But I mean, if any of this stuff is true, then hopefully it has affected me for the better. So um, yeah, that's just a little bit of what I wanted to talk about. Shout out Andrew, Loki the goat, Loki the science podcast goat. Um, yeah, he has a whole podcast out on dopamine, and I think he does talk about the like cold exposure and its relation to it. So I'd check that out. It's been a while since I watched that, but it was good. And yeah, I think I do want to check on how it like affects testosterone too, because that also seems like pretty cool. So yeah, that's pretty much it.